Okay, so get this. Amazon just turned Alexa into a podcast network. On demand, 2 AI co-hosts, any topic. Variety's Todd Spangler covered it, and this is not a gimmick story. This is infrastructure. We'll break down what it actually means for the industry.
We want to hear from you. Submit questions via the web form in the description or give us a call at 747-234-2678 and leave your question. Don't be shy. Our AI assistant makes it super easy.
So, Amazon just built a podcast. Actually, scratch that. Amazon just built a podcast factory. Alexa Plus can now generate on-demand audio episodes on any topic, complete with 2 AI co-hosts having what Variety's Todd Spangler called chats between robot co-hosts. And I gotta say, that framing is doing a lot of heavy lifting. 2 robot co-hosts discussing whatever you ask them to. Sports, finance, true crime, ready in minutes. That is either the future of personalized audio or the most elaborate way to avoid reading a news summary. Possibly both. Here's what actually matters, though. According to Amazon's own announcement, Alexa Plus is pulling from hundreds of partnered news outlets to fuel this thing. Hundreds! That is a content licensing infrastructure most podcast networks spent years trying to build, and Amazon is running it as a feature on a voice assistant. Let that land for a second. Now, the instinct from the human-hosted show side is to wave this off. It sounds robotic. Listeners want authenticity. AI can't replicate the chemistry of real hosts. And sure, that's true today. But that's a capability gap, not a moat. Capability gaps close. Moats don't always. Which brings me to a quieter data point that I think deserves more attention than it's getting. A platform called Mato, which produces AI-generated podcasts, just announced it hit 10,000 listeners. Per Business Insider's markets reporting, that milestone was published yesterday. 10,000 listeners is not a number that moves market ad markets. But you know what it is? Proof of audience. Real humans choosing AI-produced audio over human-hosted alternatives. That is the signal inside the noise. The harder question for network executives is this: is Amazon's Alexa Play a distribution feature they were always going to build, or is this genuine competition for listening time? Because those 2 scenarios require 2 completely different responses. One is a shrug, the other is a fire drill.
My read? Amazon is not building a cute gimmick. A company that runs ad upfronts, operates a music streaming service, and just debuted video podcast functionality on Amazon Music does not accidentally launch an AI podcast generator. These moves are connected, and the through line is pretty clear. Amazon wants a piece of every format, every surface, every listening moment you have. So, here's the question I'd be sitting with if I ran a podcast network right now. If Amazon is coming at the audio space from the AI content angle and the video angle simultaneously, what does that mean for the platform still betting that one format is enough?
So Amazon's playing 2 hands at once. The AI audio move we just broke down, and now this. Spotify adopting Apple's HLS video streaming technology. On the surface, that sounds like a boring tech integration. It is not boring. According to Lauren Forrestal at TechCrunch, Spotify will let creators distribute and monetize video podcasts on Apple Podcasts without changing their existing workflows. 1 upload, 2 platforms. That is a distribution leverage shift. Quietly, both platforms just made themselves less optional by making themselves interoperable. Here's the structural read. Every time a creator can reach 2 major platforms from one workflow, the incentive to go exclusive with either drops. Spotify and Apple both know this. They took the deal anyway. Why? Because the alternative, watching creators route around them entirely through YouTube, is worse. Now Amazon. Digiday reported this week that Amazon's upfront presentation leaned hard into video podcasts, with an internal thesis that creator video podcasts can be the next generation of TV networks. Bold claim. Here's the catch they openly admitted to: measurement. Amazon flagged the measurement problem themselves. No unified attribution across video and audio streams means advertisers can't close the loop on ROI, which means the CPMs this format should command are not materializing yet. You've got a TV network ambition sitting on a podcast measurement infrastructure. That gap is the whole ballgame right now. And that's exactly why the iHeart data point matters so much for anyone running a legacy audio network. Inside Radio reported this week that iHeart launched video podcasts on the iHeart Radio app, and CEO Bob Pittman said video is expanding reach without cannibalizing audio. Repeat that: not replacing, expanding. For operators sitting on big audio catalogs, that's the permission structure you've been waiting for. You don't have to blow up your audio business to participate in video. iHeart is the case study. Run video alongside audio, grow the addressable audience, and wait for measurement infrastructure to catch up before you restructure your ad deals.
Forbes also flagged this week that podcasting is now iHeart's fastest-growing segment. That's not a small thing for a company with a radio legacy the size of iHeart's. The format is genuinely moving the needle on their quarterly earnings. So the platform expansion logic is spreading. Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, and the next wave of platforms showing up, they're not audio native at all. Streaming services are arriving now, and they're treating podcasts as something closer to a retention weapon than a content category. Now flip that around, because while the audio-native players are all scrambling into video, a completely different set of executives just figured out that podcasts exist. I know, wild timing. Paramount Plus is reportedly exploring adding podcasts to its streaming service. Business Insider reported this week that talks are underway with podcast networks and creators, and the strategy skews video-centric. HBO Max is already a step ahead, adding podcasts in Europe. The Hollywood Reporter framed it explicitly. Warner Bros. Discovery is taking a page from its U.S. playbook at a moment when Netflix has been pushing hard in podcasting, and Paramount is watching. The Netflix parallel being invoked in Paramount's internal conversations is the tell. That framing doesn't come from the content team. That comes from the C-suite. When a streaming executive starts saying, "We need what Netflix has," the investment follows. So what's actually driving this? Here's my read. Streaming services spent 5 years treating podcasts as a marketing vehicle, a promotional layer for their IP. New season of a show drops, they spin up a companion podcast, get a few million downloads, call it audience development, fine. But that's not what's happening now. What's shifting is how streaming execs think about retention. Subscriber churn is the number that keeps them up at night. And podcasts, especially video podcasts built around owned IP and talent, are emerging as low-cost, high-frequency touchpoints that keep subscribers engaged between prestige drops. Netflix figured that out. Now the Paramount and Warner teams are doing the math. The question for podcast networks who've been pitching streaming deals for years? This is the moment those conversations get real budget behind them, not development money, acquisition, or licensing money. There's a difference, and networks need to price accordingly. Because here's what I'd stress test immediately. What's the unit economics on a podcast deal when the buyer is a streamer optimizing for churn reduction rather than ad revenue? The value calculation is completely different. A network that prices its catalog based on download CPMs is going to leave serious money on the table negotiating with Paramount or HBO. The critical content moat logic spreading through streaming C-suites is good for the podcast industry long term. More buyers, more leverage. But the networks that win these deals will be the ones who reframe their pitch around subscriber lifetime value, not audience reach. And that brings us directly to the part of the story that ties everything together. Whether the industry can actually measure and monetize this growth at the scale these deals require. So that streaming expansion we just walked through, the monetization question is where it either pays off or doesn't. Let's get into the numbers. iHeartMedia's Q1 2026 results dropped this week, and Forbes covered it straight.
total revenues up 9.6% to $884 million. Fine. But bury the lead and you miss the story. Podcast revenue hit $147 million, up 27.9% year over year. According to eMarketer, that makes podcasting iHeart's fastest growing segment. Full stop. Now here's the unit economics question I keep stress testing. Adjusted EBITDA fell 11.4% to $93 million. Stock dropped 11.6% on Tuesday. So the market looked at 27% podcast growth and still punished the stock. Why? Because growth without margin expansion is a story investors have heard before. The ad market is soft, costs are up, and the measurement infrastructure to unlock premium brand budgets still incomplete. Which is exactly why the Triton-Nielsen deal this week is the most operationally significant announcement in podcast advertising this quarter. Barrett Media covered it. Triton Digital is integrating its podcast metrics demos plus data directly into Nielsen Media Impact. That sounds like a back-office plumbing story. It is not. Think about what brand planners actually need to move real budget into podcasting. Cross-media measurement. The ability to say, here's how podcast spend stacks up against linear TV, streaming, digital. That comparison has never been clean, and every time a media buyer can't make a clean comparison, they default to the medium they can measure. That's where podcast ad dollars go to die. Triton plus Nielsen changes that calculus. You're talking about podcast audience data flowing into the same planning tool agencies use for TV buys. That's not incremental. That's the unlock for the next tier of brand budgets. And it lands at exactly the moment every major platform is pitching podcasting to upfront advertisers.
And then there's Arena Radio. Insider Radio covered their launch of a listen-to-earn model this week. Subscription-free, ad-free, built on what they're calling a decentralized direct value system, where listeners get paid to tune in. Arena Radio's position is that ad sponsorships are unreliable. Their answer is to remove ads entirely and reward the audience instead. Will it scale? Unknown. The unit economics are genuinely unclear at this stage, but the underlying signal is real. As competition for listening time intensifies, audience incentive structures are going to get creative. iHeart's growth numbers are drawing more players into this space. Measurement is finally catching up, and someone's already trying to flip the monetization model upside down. The infrastructure story and the experimentation story are running in parallel right now.
That's the episode. 3 things I keep coming back to. Amazon is not building a podcast feature, it's building content infrastructure at scale. The Spotify-Apple interoperability move is quietly killing platform exclusivity economics. And iHeart's numbers prove the ad money is real, not theoretical.